Oh, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. APW Sports signing in, and welcome back to this week's Power Rankings. I know it's a little late, but I had some life things going on. But nonetheless, I'm still going to provide you guys this week's Power Rankings heading into week 9. But let's get into it without further ado. Let's dive into it. All right, these are the rankings that we had last week. No bye weeks, so every team is subject to change. But this is what we had last week. Let's get into this week. First, we have the Arizona Cardinals coming off of a loss. Another one. I'm going to put them at a D, and I don't really understand the trading of Josh Dobbs. But nonetheless, Arizona Cardinals, D. Next, we're going to have the Atlanta Falcons. They are coming off of a really tough loss to the Tennessee Titans. Last week, I had them at a B. I think I'm going to keep the Falcons there at a B. I still think this is a very kind of average team. Now, it's interesting to see what the quarterback situation looks like with Heineke and Ritter. I personally still think Ritter should play maybe, but he hasn't been well the last couple of weeks. So I think that is something for this Falcons team to look out for. And the sad thing is that they lost Grady Jarrett for the year, so that is going to suck for them. Next is going to be the Baltimore Ravens. I am still going to have the Baltimore Ravens at an S tier coming off of a win against the Arizona Cardinals. I still think that this team just seems like something is missing. Maybe it's just me. I just really think something is missing from this Ravens team, and I don't know what it is. They got a good defense. Passing game has been good. Running game has been okay. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what. It just feels like something is missing. Next is the Buffalo Bills. I had them at an A. I'm going to keep the Bills there at an A. I still think they're a step below them, especially with the inconsistency that they've been playing. And they had a close ball game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Thursday night. So I'm going to keep the Bills at an A. Next is the Panthers. I still have them at a D despite them getting their first win of the season against the Houston Texans in a battle of the number 1 overall quarterbacks. And a guy like Bryce Young that the Panthers have played solid. But I just still think this team is probably one of the worst teams in football. But it is good to see that there will be no defeated teams in the NFL this year. Shout out to the Panthers for getting their first win. Next, Bears, D. I'll leave my reaction to them up in the cards, but it was bad. It was bad. Next, we're going to move on to the Cincinnati Bengals. I think this might be... this is a game where I'm going to put the Bengals in the nest. I think they are finally starting to get some things together. I know that their record is 4-3, but I just think this Bengals team, especially coming off of a performance like that against the 49ers defense, scoring 31 points, whew, I think the Bengals might be one of the better teams in the NFC right now. Maybe. I think they're getting hot and coming off of their early season struggles. Next is the Cleveland Browns. Now, Cleveland is kind of difficult to rate, but last week I had them at an A. And they are coming off of a loss against Seattle, so I'm going to drop them to a B. It's just, when is this offense going to be consistent at any point? When is the quarterback play, whether it's Watson, whether it's been Walker, it just hasn't been there. Their defense has been there. Offensively, I think once they get, I want to say, they start to creep up to a little bit of a level with the defense, I think this team will be a very good football team, but it's just offensively they haven't been consistent. Next is the Dallas Cowboys. I've had them at an A. And honestly, I'm going to move them to an S. I know this is crazy coming from me, a guy that hates Cowboys fans, but I had to give it to this football team. They came out against a very solid Rams football team and pretty much dubbed them. Dak Prescott looked good. CeeDee Lamb, I think, had a career game, and that defense was playing well. So I'm going to put the Cowboys in the S tier. Crazy for me, but hey, I had to call the spade a spade. Next, we're going to go to the Denver Broncos. And I might have to move them up to an S, especially how this team played against the Kansas City Chiefs. That was a really good performance by them against the Chiefs, especially on the defensive side of the ball. This team looked like a competent football team against the Chiefs, who started to look like the best team in the NFL once again. And this Broncos team just played some excellent football. They made plays to win that game. And they finally ended the streak of beating the Chiefs. So I'm going to put the Broncos at C. Next, I have the Detroit Lions and had them at A last week. I'm going to keep them there for now. I think this team could easily rise themselves up to an S, but they bounced back. They got a much-needed win against the Raiders on Monday night. So I'm going to put the Detroit Lions at an A tier for this week. Next is the Green Bay Packers. I'm dropping them down to a D, and this is satisfying for me to do this. As a Bears fan, this team has not looked good. Jordan Love has regressed over the past couple of weeks. Defensively, they've been inconsistent, even though Rashawn Gary has been playing some really solid football for them. It's just this team is very inconsistent on both sides of the ball. Mainly Jordan Love's play has not been stellar like they was the first 2 weeks of the year. It doesn't look like he's the guy, but I know it's early. It just, from these past couple of weeks, he doesn't look like the guy. It's interesting to see how things go forward for him. But Packers, D. Texans, I had the Texans at a B. I'm going to drop them to a C. Surprisingly, they lost that game to the Panthers. I just think they let it get away late. They didn't make enough plays down the stretch. And they let that game slip away out of their fingertips. So I'm going to drop them to a C just based off the fact that they lost to a winless football team when the Texans were playing some really good football. So I'm going to have to drop them to a C. Next, we're going to have the Indianapolis Colts. They are also coming off of a loss to the New Orleans Saints. I can't put them at a D yet. I don't think they're one of the worst teams in football. Of course, we're dealing with the Anthony Richardson injury. Minshew plays solid. That defense has played okay. It wasn't great against New Orleans, but I don't think they're at a D level as a football team, so I'm going to keep them at a C. Next, we're going to have the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is where things start to change. Call me crazy. Jaguars, past few weeks, they've been playing some really S-tier level football. Trevor Lawrence is really getting his offense together, and that defense has been really stellar. And I'm going to have to put them in an S. Next is the Chiefs. Despite the loss to the Broncos, I still have them as one of the best teams in football. I think this is just one of those games that just happens in the course of a football season. I just think it was one of those games that happens. Mahomes didn't look great. The defense wasn't the best. And I just think when also the receivers haven't been catching the ball very well. But I'll still have this Chiefs team in an S. Next is the Chargers. I had them at a C. I'm going to move them up to a B. Much needed win against the Bears. Dominant win for them against the Bears. I'm not going to talk about that too long because the Bears just sucked. And the Chargers, Justin Herbert started to finally get rhythm. Their defense is starting to finally get after the quarterback. And it just was a very good performance for them. A performance that they need to keep their season intact. Next, we're going to have the Los Angeles Rams. I'm going to drop them to a C. They just did not come out. They just looked flat against the Cowboys. Things just looked absolutely flat for this football team against the Cowboys. They did not play good football. And that defense, they let Dallas kind of throw the ball all over the field on them. So I'm going to drop them to a C. The Raiders, D. They are just falling off of a cliff. Especially when you lose to the Bears like they did. They come on Monday night in primetime, they lose like they did to Detroit, even though Detroit is a very good football team. And I still personally think two things about this Raiders football team. One, Josh McDaniels hire, mistake. Two, letting go of Derek Carr, mistake. That's just me. Next is the Miami Dolphins. It was kind of gutting to rate this team, but I had to leave them at an A for the moment. I still believe in this offense. I still believe that they can get things done. It was just this Dolphins team, I think defensively, once they started to get everybody back in the swing and back in the fold and back healthy. I think this is where you're finally going to see the complete defense. But for now, I'm going to have them in an A. Next is the Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to put them at a B for that performance, but it sucks that Kirk Cousins is out for the year with the Achilles injury. It also sucks for me because I had him as my fantasy quarterback. But for the sake of this and the rankings of right now, I'll have them at a B. But they just traded for Josh Dobbs today, and it's interesting to see where their quarterback situations are going to go the rest of the year with Kirk Cousins being officially out. Their defense has been playing well the last few weeks. Brian Flores has this team flying all over the football defensively. It's just interesting to see how this offense is going to look when A, Justin Jefferson comes back, and B, it'll be without Kirk Cousins. So we'll see. Patriots, I had them at a D. I'm going to keep them there. This is just not a very solid football team at this point. I just don't believe in them anymore. And as things pass Bill Belichick by, Next is the Saints. I had the Saints to the C. I'm going to keep them there. And despite the win against the Colts, something doesn't look right from the Saints as on the offensive side of the ball. Alvin Kamara finally getting back in some rhythm, but it's just too inconsistent on offense for me. Next, Giants D. I still think paying Daniel Jones was a mistake, even though he didn't play. And it sucks that Tyrod Taylor got out during the game. But this Giants team is just in trouble. And they also just traded Landon Williams to the Seahawks. So that part. Jets, I had them at a B. I'm going to keep them there. Zach Wilson did not have the greatest of games, but he had a couple of moments down the stretch to get the Jets to victory. In a game that, honestly, with the way the Giants offense is playing, shouldn't have been that close. So I'm going to keep them at a B. Next, Eagles, best team in the NFC in my opinion. They're clicking. It was a little bit closer against the Commanders, but and I have to just say this, A.J. Brown is playing like the best receiver in football right now. He has just been dominant the last few weeks. I'd have to give him his props. He has been dominant. That defense still has some consistency issues in my opinion, but A.J. Brown, special. The Steelers, I had them at a B. Now, this is an interesting team. Coming off a loss to Jacksonville, I still don't think they're at the level with these teams, so I'm going to keep them at a B. And Kenny Pickett was actually injured in that ball game, and we've seen Trubisky come in. I don't think they're at the C level with the rest of those teams, but they had a game that Jacksonville actually kind of dominated for a bit, but I'm still going to keep them at a B. Next is the Seahawks coming off of a win against the Cleveland Browns. This one's tough. But I am going to put the Seahawks at an A. I think defensively they get it at the quarterback. Geno Smith has been playing solid football. So I'm going to have the Seattle Seahawks at an A for the moment because the San Francisco 49ers dropping for the first time in my rankings. Not only in the division that they dropped behind Seattle, they're on a 3-game losing streak. And Brock Purdy does not look like the Brock Purdy we've seen the first 10 starts of his career. That defense against the Cincinnati Bengals did not play well. And this 49ers team, is this something to be desired? Maybe. They also have a lot of injuries too. Debo, Trent Williams out. I think those two make a big difference in this football team. And slow down on the Brock Purdy elite talk. I was one that said it's not a big enough sample size. Even though he did it through the first 10 starts, if he can continue that play and continue to play, then he's elite. It's not elite yet. It's too small of a sample size to call a guy like Brock Purdy elite. It's not there yet. And these last few games have shown why. Next is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I had them at a B. I'm going to drop them to a C. It just looks like Baker Mayfield hasn't been playing the greatest of football the last couple of weeks. Is it time for Kyle Trask to get an opportunity? Who knows? But, well, they're in a bad division to begin with, so I'm going to have them in a C. Tennessee Titans, I had them as C. I'm going to keep the Titans there. And that's a crazy football team. Is Will Levis finally going to get the move? And I told you guys from the get-go, Ryan Tannehill was going to be done at some point of the year. And I think this is the point with Will Levis throwing 4 touchdown passes in his debut. I think this is a game that Ryan Tannehill is done as a Tennessee Titan. I think Will Levis is going to be the quarterback one moving forward. Let me know what you guys think about that. Next, and but not least, the Washington Commanders. I'm going to keep them in a C. They kept themselves in a really tough ball game against a really tough football team in the Philadelphia Eagles. And Sam Howell played well. Interesting how that defensive line is going to look after trading Montez Sweat, which I'll do a video about, and also trading Chase Young. 2 of their stud pass rushers are now gone. And this football team is looking like they're probably pressing the reset button a little bit. All right, these are my rankings for week 9. Make sure you guys leave this video a like. Comment your thoughts down below. I will see you guys in the next one. APW Sports signing out. Make sure you have a great and excellent day. Peace.